What's going on, everyone? It is Monday, April 26th. My name is Everett, and welcome to the Volleyball Source podcast. We've got a great episode coming up today. Joining us is the current men's coach of the year for the Danish Pro League. He led Middelfart Volleyball Club to their first cup championship ever and a bronze medal in the league. He is head coach Mike Bossence. Mike, head coach, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Back in Canada, so I'm nice and comfortable after a couple hours of traveling, but I'm happy to be home.
That's great. I'm guessing you're in quarantine right now?
Yeah, I did a couple days in the hotel quarantine. So you get off the plane, you get tested, you go straight to a hotel. So I did my dues there, and now I'm back home isolating for 2 weeks. So I'm just at home.
So you're back home in Durham right now?
Yeah, I'm back home in Durham. I live in Pickering.
Pickering. Fair enough. So you are a former Durham Attack athlete. You've coached at the Ohio State University.
Yeah.
For the Buckeyes. You've coached at Durham College. Your first year of coaching pro was last year in Sweden, but this year it was the big one in Denmark. You won the Cup championship. You guys got third in the league. You had a couple of Canadians on your team. So first off, let's just start how would you put into words this season? How was this season for you?
I mean, every team you coach, whether they're kids or adults or whatever you do, you're always going to be faced with unexpected incidences or unexpected things that happen. And this season was no different.
Especially this season with COVID and everything.
Especially this season. We're very lucky to keep training. We were very lucky to use gym facilities. They were lucky to lift. We weren't able to get haircuts, but we were very lucky. Yeah, me too. I'm telling you. But we were very lucky, and a lot of leagues and clubs weren't as lucky as we were. But there were so many personalities on the team, and the team clicked so early, and it was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun having that many personalities and that many, I guess, spirits, if you want to call it, all on one team.
It did seem a lot of fun. You had, as I mentioned, you had a couple of Canadians in your team, George Thompson, Irvin Brar. I was watching Irvin's stories, Instagram stories, kind of after the season. You guys were playing soccer golf as a team. You were playing soccer, and you were even getting in there. So it looked like you guys had a good team vibe, and you guys were just getting along, almost like a brotherhood.
It really helps having guys like Irvin and George Thompson who have these very it's hard to explain, but their personalities are so enlightening, and whenever they step into a room, they make everyone comfortable, and they don't, even with their status and Irvin Barr being on Team Canada and George doing wonderful things in Denmark, they make people feel at ease. They make people feel comfortable, not intimidated. And we had a lot of talent on the team, and everybody with talent on that team made the rest feel comfortable. And it helped that we played, these warm-up games that got a little competitive, and, you got to let these competitive guys be competitive. And it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows at training either. These guys like to train. They like to be competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never met George. I'm good friends with Irvin, and you're right. He's the type of guy that just it's magnetic when he walks into the room. He's like a ray of sunshine. He's always got a positive attitude. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always there, ready to support one of his buddies. And he's also one of the best athletes I've ever seen too. So that doesn't help. That doesn't hurt either.
I would probably agree with you. It wouldn't be a stretch to say he's the closest thing to a Michael Jordan personality, where he is so competitive all the time, and even if he's not captain or even if he's not playing, there's this presence to him where he demands competitiveness. And no matter if he's playing, beer pong in college, or he's playing table tennis here, or he's doing half court competitive, or he's playing beach, the guy's going to put in 110% in absolutely everything.
So how did that work out with ending up with two Canadians on your team? Was that just kind of serendipitous, or did it happen in a way that you found out that Irv and George Thompson were available, and you're like, yeah, I want these guys on my team?
Well, I mean, you kind of have to get lucky with guys like that too. You kind of have to fall in the right place. And Irvin, I know, when he was playing in the Bundesliga, he obviously got some attention there. And as a Canadian, we watch over him and we see what he's doing. And he actually reached out to me and he was looking for opportunities. And I guess he just knew there was a Canadian coach overseas. And he actually reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I want to keep my options open. Basically, you're someone who might be like to play with and be coached by. What do you think?" And I said, "Let me think about it." even though right away I'm like, "Yeah, 100%. Why wouldn't I take this guy?" And I contacted the manager and I said, I think we have a guy that would be a good fit for our team. And we started talking and everything just kind of matched up. And it was Irvin that actually said, "Hey, I got a friend, George," because they're very good friends. He's kind of looking for a club too, and he has experience in Denmark. Would it make sense to maybe bring both of us? And it did make sense, and everything kind of worked out. So we got lucky. They were looking for places to play. We were looking for athletes. So everything just kind of fell where it should have, I guess.
I mean, it seemed like Denmark was a very popular place for Canadians this year. There was quite a few Canadians in the league. Jordan Darlington, Joel Regier as well. Of course, Phil Dixon was coaching over at Nordenskov. So it was almost kind of like a little Canada up there in Scandinavia.
Yeah, especially Sweden, where I coached last year, there was a high number of Australians and Canadians, and Canadians are so welcomed into Scandinavia. So if you're a young athlete looking for opportunity, reaching out to those, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, that's a really good place to start for a lot of Canadians. And the way the visas work, it's very accessible, and the process is easier than a lot of other countries.
Okay. What's the level like in the Danish league?
The Danish, it's pretty high. That's a good question. There are excellent athletes who pass through there, but Denmark being a small country, you definitely get a lot of youth athletes who are on the youth national team, and you find a lot of youth programs developing a lot early. And a lot of those younger athletes actually play in the Liga and they play on those teams. So there's this medium between these pros and then youth athletes coming up, and there's this synergy between the two. So you get a team like Gentofte, who predominantly is made up of Danish national players, but they also have this draw from Copenhagen for a lot of these young athletes. So it can be either incredibly competitive, and then as the funding and things go down, it gets to about college level. But the top 5 and up, that's where you start seeing a lot of pros, a lot of competitive athletes who can compete in European Cup.
Mm-hmm. It's always interesting for me to look at how pro volleyball is treated differently across different countries. And I think in our heads as North Americans, our idea of pro is the NHL, the NBA, the NFL.
Right,
and
yeah.
I don't think like that's a reality that's so far from the truth, even at the highest levels of volleyball. I remember talking to players and they're just being like, you know what, like I've played on teams where, the guys who are starting for our team, had jobs during the day
Yeah,
and then would train at night and then would bang balls with us on the weekend and stuff like that.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. There's guys with families on the team, and a lot of countries have league rules where you have to have an X amount of, domestic players on that team. And there's a lot of good athletes who have jobs, and there's a lot of good athletes who have families, and they're on the team. So you have a mix between, part-time and full-time practice players and part-time, full-time game players. And professional, like you said, when you think NBA, NHL, it's not always like that. Sometimes you'll only have maybe 6 guys at training. Sometimes you don't have a full squad going to games because someone's got work and someone can't find a babysitter. That happens all over the world, unless you're maybe at the top level in Italy or you're at the top level in Russia where 100% of the athletes are professional.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's always an interesting, dynamic, I think, when guys go overseas for the first time. Now, looking into this season, I know that Irv kind of got injured towards the end of the year in the playoffs, so maybe the playoff result with the bronze medal wasn't exactly what you guys were looking for. However, you guys did win the Cup championship and the Danish Cup, and I believe was it the first one, or was the first one in 40 plus years?
It was the first one in 41 years.
41 years. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Was that part of was that one of your goals heading into the season? Was that one of the goals that you had stated kind of with the club when you had been hired on, or is that just something that came about when you saw, how the team was working together and the collection of athletes that you had?
I believe when we started recruiting athletes and we saw that we were getting quality athletes in, and Middelfart has always been known for having quality athletes and foreigners come in. And the goal has always been with this club as a top 3 team to try to win the cup and to win the league and to have the opportunity to play in the European Cup. So there was, a lot of managers and presidents don't want to put that on the coach saying, hey, you kind of have to win a cup because of the athletes we have, and you kind of have to win a league, but have fun with it. Mm-hmm. So there's a pressure on the staff, and there is somewhat pressure with the athletes that I try to take from them, but we definitely wanted to win a cup from day one. That was our goal. We knew we had to be athletic and be healthy and work really hard to get it.
That was a mission accomplished then. You guys took home the cup.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Does that lead into kind of Challenge Cup, CEV Cup next year, or is that based off of the league results?
So the league results, there's one of 2 ways you can get to the European Cup. The CEV is if you win that. I believe if you win that European Cup, you move on. But you either have to win the cup or win the league to get to the European Cup.
Okay. When is the European Cup?
I believe it's in November.
Okay, so it's next year.
It's the next year, and then right before the season starts.
Okay, understandable. So, I guess we should get out of the way right off the bat. Are you planning to head back to Middelfart next year, or are you going to take the success and kind of move up and pursue maybe a bigger job elsewhere?
Trying to just retire and just like roll in.
Retire on top, right?
I'll just retire completely.
That's why you did the whole apprenticeship at OSU, just to win that one cup, and then you were done.
Yeah. I obviously I want to go back to Denmark, of course, and that country is so beautiful and the people are so nice, and it would be nice to go back. However, with COVID and things like that, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen with funding, and unless you have a contract right in front of you, anything can happen. So even though the club is very genuine in saying we'd love to have you back, we work well together, the success is a byproduct of how hard the organization has worked. Unless you have a contract right in front of you, player or coach, it doesn't really mean anything. So you can keep ties as much as possible and hope for the best, but that's pretty much it.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's pretty much as you said, it's the reality for everyone. A 1-year contract is pretty much standard. And I always applaud, it's always great when I see multi-year contracts, whether it's for coaches or for players. But coaching, Canadian coaches specifically going over and coaching in Europe is kind of a newer phenomenon in a lot of ways. And there's not that many guys did it. I know of 2 right now. It's yourself and Phil Dixon, both in Denmark. Maybe a few others, but it just doesn't seem like it's that strong of a pursuit for Canadian coaches to go coach overseas.
I would probably agree with you. I think our college and university systems are so well built, and there's so much funding, and there's so much opportunity to play for a good program. And Ontario alone has over 200 colleges or something like that. Canadian culture is, you go to school, you play in school if you can, and then you graduate with a degree, and that's it. And coaching is kind of the same way. You can kind of give back and go back to the college that you played at, and we kind of leave the Europeans to do European stuff, and we leave Canadians to do Canadian stuff. But it wasn't until I had, kind of a thought where, well, why can't I do that? If I want to coach at the highest level, why can't I go to Europe? What's stopping anyone from doing that? You have to get a little lucky. You have to be good, and you need some connections out there, which I didn't have really any of that. So you kind of roll the dice and you hope for the best. And I think now I would like to encourage athletes and coaches to go out to Europe and at least experience it. But you're right. I know maybe 2 or 3 Canadian coaches out there right now.
How did you get your foot in the door then? Like, what was that first step? Were you just like blind emailing teams? Because I mentioned earlier your first season was last year in Sweden. No Canadians on that roster, so it's not like you had any guys pulling you in. The club that you coached for wasn't really known for one that would bring in Canadians and North Americans. So how did you get your foot in the door?
Yeah, that club I coached in Sweden, I was their first full-time coach, I think, ever.
Oh, damn. Wow.
Yeah. So that was a time where one of the 3 things, luck kind of played a part. They were looking for a young coach who had ideas and wasn't really afraid to take chances. And I was kind of that guy. But the same with Ohio is I just cold called everybody. And I did that for probably 2 years. If you don't know by now, but Facebook is an incredible platform to communicate with coaches and players from all over the world. Facebook is the thing. So my first contract in Sweden actually got finalized over Facebook Messenger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So with Ohio, I might have contacted 15 Division I schools and maybe 10 Division III schools. I got a couple emails sent out to a bunch of Canadian colleges out west. I got a lot of no's, a lot of, hey, perhaps next year. And then I got lucky with Ohio. That was basically it.
Was Ohio your number one choice? Because I read your Instagram post when Pete Hansen retired, and it seemed like going there, and it's the Ohio State. They have such a great history across sport, not only volleyball, but one of it's one of the most decorated volleyball schools, especially on the East Coast of the NCAA. So was that kind of like one of the kind of the pinnacle teams that you wanted to pursue?
I would say so. I mean, when I was sending out emails, there wasn't really a specific school where I was like, okay, that's the school I need to be at. Pete Hansen was a coach where he was coming off 2 national championships in a row. So that definitely helped, being like, I really want to work with that guy. That's something I would like to do. But no, I would have taken anything. I would have gone anywhere to learn it from anyone, really, and to get my foot in the door at that level. But like what you said, like Ohio State is such an institution for sports, period. And if you want to learn something about culture and sports, Ohio State is probably the place to be. And when Pete Hansen reached out to me, he actually called me in the morning. I wasn't even expecting it. And he goes, "What do you want to get out of this?" And I'm like, first of all, I'm in shock that Pete Hansen is calling me right now. And I was stuttering. And I go, I just want to learn. I just want to learn from you. I just want to know what it's all about. I just want to smell the gym. You know what I mean? Like in a weird way, like I want to smell the hallways. I want to be there. And he goes, well, why don't you come down for the camp and we'll see, if we like you, basically. I could be anyone who just knows something about volleyball. They don't know who I am. Mm-hmm. So I went down, coached the camp, and I seemed to win them over with something, and they gave me a shot.
What was the biggest thing that you learned from your time with Pete Hansen, your time with that program?
Oh my goodness, the endless knowledge this guy has is overwhelming. But what it basically boils down to with Pete specifically is there's no secret lock and key to winning volleyball games, and there's no secret way of coaching. There's no hidden chest of what it takes to be successful. And he basically taught me, just be yourself, and however you want to coach, just coach like that. And you don't want to be like me, just be you. Just if you think you're doing the right thing, that's all you really have. So don't try to pretend to be Pete Hansen. Don't try to pretend to be anyone else. Just do it. Like just be who you are as a coach, whether it's like this person or this person. And that was one of the biggest things he taught me.
Wow, that's powerful. So you only spent 1 year with OSU, correct?
Yeah.
And then after that, you spent time at Durham College. Where were you before that? Were you just coaching with the Durham Attack Volleyball Club before that?
So it feels like a while ago. I was doing things with Durham Attack in the technical coordinator side of things. So I was running some clinics with them. I was basically had my hand in a few developmental things with a lot of the older age groups, and that took up quite a bit of time. And I was kind of had some jobs I didn't like, and some, I tried to get by basically, but I quit all of it just to go all in.
Wow. And were you a volunteer assistant at OSU?
I was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I was there. I saved up all my money doing tiling with my girlfriend's father. I was, I was tiling with him for like 2 straight summers. I had no life. I had like nothing. I just saved up all my money and I went.
wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, lucky you did that because hey, it's already paying off.
Yeah, it was a big gamble, and I feel bad for my parents, seeing me gamble my basically the start of my whole life on this. It could have worked out, it could not have. I could have hated it, I could have resented coaching, I could have resented the process. But I mean, in a good way, desperation is kind of a really good motivator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it perfectly yourself. Now, we you touched a little bit about earlier about how like the university system and the college system here in Canada is so good, and that's why we don't see that many coaches overseas. But I've always looked at guys like, if you take a Dave Preston, for example, at McMaster, if I think that you could almost put him in any club overseas and he would find success. Like our level of coaching here in Canada is so high because we've kept so many guys here in Canada.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. There's a lot of talented coaches who either get overlooked or, who I can name probably 20 coaches right now who could probably coach professionally, men or women, in Europe. There's definitely a different approach to coaching professional than at a grassroots level or a developmental level. College and university I've been in both. It is a little bit different how you approach the game, because you're still tweaking and developing guys even in their 3rd and 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
In professional, you're kind of handed a guy like Irvin Brar, who is good. Like he's good. He's good to go. He's a racehorse. You don't need to train him anymore. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't teach him technically much. There wasn't much more I could have given him to be successful. He was given to me like that. So you approach those guys a little bit differently. You find different ways to motivate them, and you give them what they need. College, university athletes, they don't really know what they need yet. They don't know yet what motivates them necessarily yet. Those guys kind of do. They've been around. They know how it works. So it's my job to give them what they need and give them what they need to thrive in a team environment.
I mean, it must be difficult too. As you broke it down, you've got some younger kids. Like if you're in Denmark, you've got some younger kids who are still kind of coming up, and then you've got pros. So it might be you might be juggling with the development side with some of the younger guys, and then kind of the managing side of some of the professionals.
For sure. It's a lot of delegating, and it's a lot of prioritizing. You have to really sit down and prioritize what has to go where and when. And you need to get those young guys in. They have to play and they need to train, but they're also in school, and you have pros who need different things. So it is definitely a juggling act. It's different.
Do you have like a team manager down there to help you kind of with all this stuff, or are you kind of on your own a little bit?
Oh God, yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah. So when I'm in Denmark or any country, if you want to coach professionally, semi-pro, whatever, you're probably going to end up coaching a youth team. You're probably going to have your hand in coaching youth. whether they're 11, 12, 13, or 15, 16, 17. You're going to do both. Um, but they knew very quickly I'm not very good with emails and documentation and things like that. My focus was volleyball. That was my focus. Everything else I was almost completely useless with. So the managerial side, Jacob Peterson, he is so good at being organized. He's so good at, making sure emails are here and making sure everything's bam, 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 bam. And I go, perfect. That's your thing. Don't let me even touch that. So there was help. There was definitely help.
Fair enough. Did you notice a difference of style of volleyball between North America and Europe? Like, is there a noticeable style between how they play, how they approach the game, how they train?
Definitely. A lot of teams, actually Sweden and Denmark, they train differently as well. A lot of players drink coffee in between water breaks. Like they drink coffee after. Some of them will have snus or like tobacco. Like some of them, yeah, like it's culturally, they just do things that are familiar with them. I think also the success of US and Canada in the Olympics, I think countries have noticed that our playing style is a little bit different, and there's a lot more middle, there's a lot more pipe, the tempo is a little bit faster, which we've kind of adapted from Brazilian volleyball. But definitely Scandinavia in general, maybe the east side of Europe or west side of Europe plays a little bit more conservative. Denmark definitely plays a little bit conservative volleyball. Just put the ball in the right place, put it in an area where we can hit it. Less errors, less errors, less errors. That seems to be that. Where in the NCAA, you're looking for speed and you're looking for go for it every time. That's why everybody's spin serving and everybody's going for it and everybody's hitting a bic. And in Scandinavia, you're kind of lucky to find spin servers. They're kind of rare because you miss more often.
Yeah, so, I did notice a lot by watching your games and looking at the stat sheet overall that the passing numbers were through the roof because everyone was passing dimes.
Yeah, 71%, 65% efficiency, like not a lot of aces. And the reason why I got a little bit giddy with Irvin, other than the fact he's a super athlete, but I had spin servers. And that's something a lot of leagues aren't familiar with, especially in Denmark. And I know that, yes, you will probably miss more serves, but you will statistically get more aces. And aces and points, for me, outweighs consistency, in my opinion. You can have both, but if you want aces, if you want points, some of the points have to come from serves, and spin serves just score more.
Yeah, I remember early in the 2016-2017 season, Kerry McDonald at UBC breaking down our team. He's like, look, we are going to serve way more errors than anyone else in the league. But we're also going to drop bombs, and we're going to be able to serve aces. And I mean, hey, it worked out for them because they ended up beating Trinity Western in the U Sport National Final that year, led by the aforementioned Irvin Brar, who was one of the best guys from that baseline. So I could definitely see Irv just tearing the ball, like the skin off the ball in Scandinavia.
He was definitely excited that. Not that I was Canadian, but definitely that I had the same ideals that he had coming from college university. And that was something I learned at Ohio as well. And they openly admitted when they played BYU in the final, they won from their serving. They won from their spin serving. They just put teams so out of system so often that they were able to play defense that wasn't that difficult to play. So it's a blessing, but it's also an incredibly hard hurdle to get over, trying to convince Danish players and European players that, hey, missed serves don't matter. That to them is like their heads will explode. Like eventually there comes to a point where you can miss too many serves. We've all seen that, but you have to stay incredibly patient. And that was one of the hurdles I had to portray to them.
So, you mentioned earlier about kind of being yourself as a coach and developing your own style. Is that something that you're starting to really incorporate into your own style? Is we want to be aggressive from the baseline?
Of course, yeah, you have to. I mean, it all depends, and it's not the right way to do it. It's not the only way to do it, but definitely for me, I don't even keep track of errors in serving. I don't keep track of it. Um, if it Mainly because not everybody on the team was spin servers. So if you are float serving or you are doing a less risky serve, those are the errors you can kind of pick apart and say, you probably shouldn't be missing as much as you are. But with a spin serve, you have the green light. You have the green light to go for it. If you're missing every serve, maybe spin serve just isn't your serve. But if you're a spin server and you're going for it and you're scoring, you have the green light all the time. And you will get pushback from, at the youth level, you get pushback from parents, you get pushback from players, you get pushback from managers saying, we're missing way too many serves. And it's hard for me, but you just have to practice saying, it's okay, just be patient, it'll get better. And it did.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not missing any serves, but the other team is setting out at a 90% clip, might as well try something else.
Yeah. If you're not serving the ball hard, if you're spin serving, you're not serving it hard, I guess you can make an argument that it's easier to pass. But if I'll use Irvin as an example, George was an extremely efficient spin server. Those serves are not easy to pass by any means. They're coming at your neck. They're coming at like below the knees. They're coming at you really hard and really fast. So if you're a spin server and you're good at it, keep doing it. And you should have the green light, in my opinion.
What ball do they use in Denmark? Is it the Mikasa?
They use the Mikasa, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's one team in the league that uses the molten ball, and you're allowed to. You're allowed to pick whatever ball you want, basically. So when they played at home, they used the molten. So our spin servers were a little bit off that day.
Really?
Yeah.
I've always found that when players who use the Mikasa go to the molten, their eyes light up because the molten is really like a spin server's ball. It's a slight bit heavier, I find, and without all of the asymmetrical patterns on it and using the 16 panels, it's I think that's why we see spin serving so prevalent in the NCAA compared to U Sports, because they have that ability to just bang on that ball and they know that it's going to curl into the court.
It's definitely a spin server's ball, no doubt about that. And it wasn't just the spin server. Well, we didn't practice with it too,
Yeah,
right?
That's
So
true.
I'm not going to say the ball matters, but it definitely does. It definitely does.
I would 100% say the ball matters, and I think we've seen it. Were you on the? Oh, yeah, you would have come to McMaster with Ohio State. So then, and we've seen that where the American teams come up and they struggle playing with the Mikasa, and then the Canadian teams go down to the States and they struggle playing with the molten just because there's no practice with either ball.
Yeah, I think we missed 20 serves that day when we came up to play at MAC. I think we missed 20 serves.
Yeah, that I remember. I was commentating that match, and we see it on the men's international side too, with that transition between the molten. Going back to the Olympic qualifiers, I'm not entirely sure Canada, pulls the reverse sweep on Cuba if we're using the molten, because that serve from Simon and guys like Yant and Lopez is way harder to serve with the molten. They absolutely picked us apart in Winnipeg at the NORCECA Championships.
Sure.
Come into the Olympic qualifiers where we're using the Mikasa, we were able to finesse them a little bit more with the finesse of the Mikasa.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried when we actually didn't have Mikasa balls, or no, the molten balls. We didn't have them. When there's a budget and your club doesn't make that much money, those balls are expensive. And here in Canada, they're like $90 a ball almost.
Something like that, absolutely.
So a molten ball, it's not cheap, and things are expensive in Denmark. So I'm always a little bit worried when we play teams like that who have a choice to play with a ball like that. And it definitely mattered. It definitely matters.
Culturally, what's Denmark like?
Denmark is very similar. Scandinavia in general is very similar to Canada, where, tax is a little bit the same. Medicine, everybody is kind of lucky with medicine. Their tax is extremely high though. So their carbon footprint is starting to be incredibly low, and they trust their government a lot. So when the government says, look, we're going to go green, we have to go green, it's good for the environment, it's good for our country, they put 150% tax on cars. So if you want to buy a car, you're paying 150% tax on that car.
Like, this is for any car, like electric included?
There are a few Teslas, but you might get a rebate or something on an electric car like we do. But if you buy a car, any car, 150% tax on that vehicle.
How does anyone survive? Like, how does anyone afford a car then?
You don't.
Like, if it's a $20,000 car, you're going to be paying, like $50,000.
Bingo.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. So the way they get around that is they have like little cars, like the little, not just hatchback, like little cars that only they look like smart cars, but they're built cheaply, and a lot of bikes, a lot of bicycles, and a lot of transit. Yeah.
How big is Middelfart as a town?
I would say it was between 15 and 18,000 people. So not an incredibly.
So it's smaller than Pickering.
Oh yeah, way smaller than Pickering. Yeah.
Wow.
Pickering's 100,000 people. About that.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, at least it's a small town, so you can kind of bike around and stuff, and there's not too much distance, and you don't really necessarily need a car. But I mean, it's still Denmark, and I feel like it's still pretty cold up there.
The weather is probably the most comparable to living in British Columbia, where you live by the sea, you live by the ocean. So winters aren't very cold. It's more, it's not as much of a dry cold than it is in Toronto. Toronto, that cold just goes right through you. So not as much snow, but the weather is mainly the same.
Are most of the teams in the league kind of centered around Copenhagen, or did you have to travel quite a bit for some of your away games?
Well, I mean, the country isn't that big, so I would say about half the teams are out east in your Copenhagen. So like Vila, Ama, they're all out east, and then when you go out west, there's a little bit fewer teams, but Middelfart is right in the middle of Denmark. So the most we ever traveled was about 2 hours.
Oh, that's great then. That's like better than an OUA travel schedule.
Oh my God, that travel schedule is awful. That is awful.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on the women's side when you got to go up to Thunder Bay too to play Lakehead.
God, it's awful. Yeah, I mean, in Sweden, I was pretty much right in the dead center of Sweden, and a lot of the teams were either out near Stockholm or South Sweden, and that can take probably 7 to 8 hours just to get to maybe 4 of those teams.
Okay, so it's not like Finnish league traveling. I've heard guys who are playing for like Rovaniemi in Finland. It's like, oh yeah, you've got to travel 8 hours no matter where you're going to be playing.
Yeah, that matters. That you can almost compare it to traveling like from Hawaii. Like I'm sure, like Steve Hunt played for Hawaii. Yep. You could ask him. It sucks to travel in Hawaii. You're taking a plane everywhere. You're jet lagged every week. You got travel is a big part of playing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, at the same time, you're living in Hawaii, right? So it's.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna give up those plane trips any single day because then you can go hang out in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
What's the food like? Is it a lot of fish based stuff in Denmark?
Denmark's a lot of pork, a lot of cheese. I think they're the second highest, if not the number one country in pork distribution. So they're known for pork. They're known for cheese. You'll see a lot of hot dogs. You'll see a lot of like street food like that. But it's,
Fair enough. Is Denmark known for their beer or anything like that?
Carlsberg.
Oh, I didn't know Carlsberg came from Denmark. Okay.
Danish beer. They like to drink in Denmark. They like their beer. For sure, they like their beer.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I mean, maybe it's definitely a good place to head back to for next year.
It's such a inviting place for a lot of Canadians specifically. It's just a nice, comforting place, especially where I'm from, Middelfart. Like it's so small, and you're right by the sea, and you're right by all these docks, and you're right by little shops that sell fresh fish and fresh mussels, and There's no big corporations in Denmark, so there's a ton of little mom and pop shops everywhere. It really is comfortable. It's very comfortable living in Denmark.
Dang, maybe we should try that. I mean, of course, we've just been killing all of our small businesses here with COVID. That's another conversation. What was how was the COVID response in Denmark?
Denmark, their prime minister is very on top of everything, and like I said before, Danes trust their government. I've never really heard of a Dane that was like, there's a conspiracy going on. There's something going on with the government. It's never like that. And the politicians take that seriously. So when they do a lockdown, they really convey to the people that this is a good thing. It will get better, but if it doesn't, we'll have an answer for you. And the people buy into that. A lot of restaurants had to close down, but takeout was still available. Barbershops closed down. But it was very fast. Everything was every politician was on top of a response. And we were very lucky to be able to play. We were very lucky for that.
What kind of response did the club and the league take towards COVID? Did you guys have to do tests or anything? Was there any kind of isolation, masks, during games? What was that like from the volleyball side of things?
The rules were there right from the start. So there wasn't any gray area with COVID laws. There wasn't, well, if you're here, you don't have to wear a mask, but here you kind of do, but here it's. So when we played, we had fans at first up to about 100, and Middelfart had a very good draw of fans. We could get easily 400 people out to a game. And it progressed into no fans. So they go, okay, this is getting a little bit bad. No fans at all. Okay. And then if you're outside the hall anytime, you have to wear a mask. You have to get tested every 10 days. That's mandatory, at least in our club it was. Seats and benches, whenever you switch sides, we were allowed to switch sides, had to be cleaned before you sat down. The balls had to be sanitized between each set. No touching, no fist bumping, no nothing. So we did our best to keep everything to protocol as we could. And unfortunately, you can't stop COVID forever. And some players and some teams were affected by COVID, especially AMA, who ended up forfeiting the league. They just had too many cases and they couldn't continue.
Wow, that's crazy. I don't think I've heard of some teams. Was this kind of like towards the end of the season or kind of midway through?
It was midway through. Whenever there was a case on a team, they would reschedule the game. So they would either do it the week of, or depending on who they came in contact with, they would postpone it accordingly. Mm-hmm. And if it didn't get better, and if it was contagious throughout another team member, they would just cancel the game completely and you forfeit that match.
Wow. That's pretty heavy then.
That's heavy, yeah.
Wow. It's going to be interesting to see. I know that VK Bank is dealing with a COVID outbreak right now, and they've got the Champions League finals coming up on Saturday. So it's kind of like, what's going to happen? Like last I saw, it was like 6 players and 6 staff members who had COVID. It's like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, you keep them in a bubble or not. I mean, something's going to happen, but it's just all about how they organize it and keep people out and how they keep people in. I don't really know what's going to happen with them. I don't know how they're going to solve that, especially with the Olympics coming up too. That's a pretty touchy subject.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I mean, we already don't have fans, so it's going to be interesting to see how the Olympics goes down. Now, for you in your coaching career, when did it come to a point where you're like, you know what, I think I want to go play pro, or not go play pro, but I think I want to go coach pro professionally, like in Europe. And at what point did you see that? Was that at Ohio State? Was that kind of your goal before going to OSU, that you knew in the back of your mind, like, I think it'd be cool to go play or go coach professionally in Europe?
I wanted to coach professionally when I was about 17, 18 years old.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So I was kind of like a lot of kids where you go through high school and you don't really know what you want to do. And being a volleyball coach isn't exactly, present in career day in high school. And
you don't say.
Yeah. So there's a lot of jobs that aren't really accessible or available, or really you don't really know you can do it. But I knew when I started coaching at 15 for Durham Attack during their house league programs, I knew that I played the sport to coach it. There was something where I was playing for a reason, even though I loved playing and I played college and I did very well and I thought I did pretty well. But I knew.
Did you play at Durham?
I played at Durham College. Yeah, I was a starter.
I'm pretty sure you played there when I played briefly at Algonquin.
Probably.
Yeah, I played Algonquin 2010, 2011.
I think we're the same age, aren't we?
I'm a 92, so I'm pretty sure you're a 91.
I'm a 91.
Yeah. Because I as I said when we started, I remember when you played for Durham and you had red Asics.
I think they're bright orange, actually. I think I still have them.
Yes, no, actually, you had the bright orange Asics, and Craig Dixon, your libero, had the red Asics. Yeah, that was a gnarly Durham team that you played on. That was a really good club team that you played on.
We had a bunch of super athletes on the team.
Yeah, Matt Isaacs was one of them.
Still one of my best friends.
Yeah, I see that you post his music all the time on your Instagram feed. Love it.
Gotta support him.
Yeah, got to rep the homies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love Matt Isaacs, and I try to keep in touch with as many players as I can. But but coaching at a house league program at Durham College, or Durham Attack, Scott Burrows gave me that opportunity because it exposed to me more around volleyball, and even though it helped him bring in coaches, it helped me be a better volleyball player, coaching the sport at a young age. And there was a lot of difficult conversations with, teachers or parents, especially my parents. I want to be a professional volleyball coach. It's like, well, how are you going to do that? How do you do that? And then my answer is, I don't know, but people do it. People do it, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to be an Olympic volleyball coach. Well, how are you going to do that? I don't know, but that guy does it. That guy over there coaches the Olympics. He does that. So that was kind of my mentality of going through it. And I knew I needed some sort of plan, but at the same time, I didn't really have a plan. I just knew I needed experience and I needed to be at a high level all the time. So Ohio State and NCAA, that to me was a high level volleyball, of course. And if I wanted to go past that, I had to play even higher. And then, like I said, I got lucky. And you got to be good, you got to be lucky, and you got to be driven and relentlessly persuasive.
Mm-hmm. Especially in a sport like volleyball too. It's not like hockey or basketball or something where it's maybe like a little bit more celebrated. You can say like, oh, I'm a youth hockey coach, and people are like, oh, okay, that's great. Whereas if you say like, oh, I'm a youth volleyball coach, people are like, kind of like, oh, okay. So what else do you do?
Yeah. Like, what job do you have?
Yeah.
What do you do for a job?
You mentioned that you started coaching at 15, and I think that's very interesting. For those who don't know, Durham Attack, especially on the women's side throughout the 2000s, kind of 2000, 2010, was absolutely dominant. Like, the national championships were littered by Durham Attack. I mean, I did a podcast with Jen Cross, who was a huge part of that. She won something like ridiculous, like 5 national championships in a row.
Five national.
Yeah, and to me, it was always came down to how good of a house league system Durham Attack had. And that to me was really the big thing. And you guys were really one of the pioneers to have an extensive house league system, and it ended up producing a lot of good players for you guys.
Yeah, a lot of players got introduced to volleyball through house league, and myself included. No one really, volleyball is a very tight community in Ontario, and everyone kind of knows everyone. And if you're not in it, you don't really know rep volleyball exists to a point. So house league was one of those ways where elementary school kids can kind of do more volleyball because everybody loves volleyball. We just don't really know where else to go with it. And you're right, Durham Attack was with the Spikes program with the women, and Scott Burrows running the house league for the boys. It just came together so nicely, and it was just so well organized, and it was a lot of fun. And we got guys like Robert Wojcik, who came from a house league program. That's one guy. Alex Elliott was another guy who played at Mac. He came through the Durham Attack house league program.
Wow, I didn't know Alex Elliott played. I knew Rob Wojcik was a Durham Attack guy.
Yeah.
I remember Alex Elliott being he was a Northumberland guy before that. But I mean, hey, they're right next door to each other, so that makes sense. I
Yeah.
still think that like high or house league volleyball is one of the most underutilized like assets that clubs have at their disposal. If I look around at the majority of clubs kind of across Canada, house league volleyball is still something that we don't do well, and I wish we did better. I personally think we focus way too much on high performance, and we're focusing too much on that top 1% athlete, and we're not focusing enough on just getting more kids in to play the game at those younger age groups, at that 5, 6, 7-year-old, 8-year-old age group, because as you said, a lot of people don't really know like club volleyball, rep volleyball exists, and then it just kind of is thrown at them at 14. You go from maybe playing a bit of like elementary school, middle school volleyball, maybe high school, and then the next thing you know, you're on a club team practicing multiple times a week, and going to tournaments, and there's no transition between that.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's I think what it comes down to too is commitment, and not just from the players but from coaches. And it's I don't know if it's I shouldn't say it's difficult to find those people, but I'll revert back to Scott Burrows when he was doing the house league. He did it on his own time. He made sure that things were run smoothly. I mean, this guy is Mr. Organization, like to a T, right? But this is a guy who loved volleyball, still does, and who loves growing athletes from the grassroots up. And if you're someone who loves doing that, just get involved
Mm-hmm.
because it does make a huge difference. And finding the time is very difficult. Um, but I mean, if you love it, you will find time. You just will.
Yeah. I also find too, growing up playing like house league soccer or house league hockey, it was always coached by parents who had previously played the sport and had a love for the sport, and they were just looking to pass it on to their kids at a volunteer basis, right? Whereas in volleyball, a lot of the parents who are getting involved with volleyball are first time volleyball parents, right? And I mean, we see like you want to see where the kids of volleyball, like parents go. They go to the national team, like Hogue, Walsh, the Ketrazinskis, like Melissa, Sarah Pavin. Like these are kids who grew up in volleyball households and went on to that next level. So I'm really hoping that as the sport progresses and gets bigger in Canada, and I mean, just as well as I do, the explosion that we've seen specifically in Ontario for the sport over the past decade has been phenomenal to watch. I'm really hoping that as that progresses, we're going to have more and more coaches, or more and more parents, want to go back and coach back at the house league level. But you brought up something very interesting that I really want to touch on, is that you started coaching at 15,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in those house league programs, and I've always kind of preached that that's one of the best models that clubs should be undertaking. Like, hey, let's use our older age athletes to teach the younger kids, because A, they know the game probably better than most of the adults. B, the best way to learn the game is to teach it, so you're only like making them better. C, like we're going to be developing our own coaches. And then like, I've always thought that like if you want to run a successful house league program, you need to engage your 16, 17U, maybe even 15U athletes to help with those programs.
Yeah, I don't really think you're too young to coach. I don't think it starts or stops anywhere with coaching. I think if you have a knack of leading and you have a good personality and you're comfortable talking with people, I think anyone can coach. And it doesn't matter what sport it is. But I think that's something that Durham Attack really, at least I'm very proud of, was allowing athletes to come coach, and it was encouraged. And an important part of growing a club or a team or anything is knowing how to develop culture. And if you don't have culture at the top, it won't trickle down to the bottom. And like you just said, getting 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds who went through it understand what it takes at the grassroots level. And you share that culture and you share that language going down.
Yeah, I almost think that they understand it better than parents and adults who, kind of had that idea of like, well, this is how things are done, so why can't we just speed it up and get it to this point? Do you see that house league culture, or maybe that development culture, being different in Europe compared to North America?
It's very different. Yeah, we have a lot more kids. We just have a lot more emphasis on getting large group of kids in one gym and playing a bunch of sports. Europe, specifically, I'll use Denmark as an example. Um, there's no really rep system. There's not really like a Pac-Man or a Durham Attack or a Northumberland, and then they play each other. It's kind of like they grow up in that club. So Middelfart has a club, and that's who you kind of play for. And if you're good, like one of the athletes I had, my libero was 15.
Wow.
Yeah, and he goes through the club system. That's the club, and sometimes they don't play against other clubs. They do, but it's not as organized. There's no refs really, like the kids ref. It's not really, it's almost like a complete 360 for
Wow.
what we. So if you're from Nordenskov, um, and you're a kid, your club is Nordenskov. That's where you play.
Yeah. And but then even like the Nordenskov clubs, like there's no like national championships for like 15U where like Nordenskov would play
Yeah.
against Middelfart against, wow.
I mean, some countries might, but no, it's very much, we're just going to develop you so you can play for for our Liga team. That's kind of how it goes. So they have it. It's not finely tuned yet. I don't think the development side is there, but teams like Habo in Sweden, they know how to do it. But we're very lucky where we can draw athletes from, Durham region is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find an athlete who doesn't play hockey and put them into volleyball. You don't really have that luxury in Denmark. You don't have that luxury in a lot of small towns. You're kind of left to whoever's left type thing.
What is the like hierarchy of sports in Denmark like? Like what's at the top? Like skiing, soccer?
I think soccer is probably number one in every country.
That's true.
Denmark takes soccer very seriously. Handball is taken very seriously too. In Middelfart, it is volleyball. Volleyball is the dominant sport.
Okay.
Table tennis, they're good at. I mean, you watch the Olympics. I think they're good in sailing. A lot of sailing, a lot of boat sports, skiing. But yeah, it's mainly soccer, handball, volleyball.
Okay. And that's interesting. I've never really thought of Denmark as an athletic community, but obviously they've got some good stuff going on there.
Yeah, they got some good stuff. Finland's right up there. Finland puts a lot of money into their sports. A lot of money.
Yeah, Finland, Sweden. I feel like like of the four Scandinavian countries, I feel like Finland and Sweden really put a lot in. I mean, we are seeing Norway with a lot of success with the beach volley Vikings these days as well too.
Yeah, and well, Norway has a lot of money. Norway is a very wealthy country.
A lot of oil there, right?
A lot of oil. Just like they could fund the entire like they could fund the whole Scandinavian countries. But Sweden, surprisingly, they put all their resources in soccer and they put a lot of resources in hockey to compete, right? Because hockey is pretty well dominated by only a couple countries. And if Sweden is right there, they need that extra push. They know they're not going to probably compete against Canada in the Olympics in volleyball. So a lot of money isn't put there.
Yeah, that's very fair. Sorry, I got a text message there, kind of distracted me from my train of thought. But at this point, I'm guessing your outlook is looking towards like I'm guessing you're wanting to be kind of a full-time coach. You've been in it for 2 years now as a pro. Is this your path, kind of moving forward indefinitely?
For sure. At some capacity, I think leading is just my passion, and coaching is just another vehicle for me to lead and to motivate. And I've had little businesses, I've started businesses, and I just knew that I like to lead and I like to educate and I like to motivate people. And volleyball was a vehicle for that. But I can't see myself not coaching. I can't see myself doing anything else. I don't want to say like the 9 to 5 thing isn't for me, but it really isn't.
You can definitely say that. I mean, why not, right?
No, I mean, people, everyone's different, and it's not a bad thing to do that, but it's also not a bad thing where if you want to coach professional, I think you should give it a try. You just have to really go down the right avenues. You have to be very committed, and you have to be very willing to work with no money. And you have to be expecting the unexpected all the time, and it's a very lonely process, especially for players. Relationships can be affected by it, friendships can be affected by it, and it's a very long process, and you just have to buckle up and enjoy the ride.
But especially for you, because you are considered a very young coach. Like if you're not 30 yet, are you 30?
29.
29. But you turned 30 kind of this year, I'm guessing.
It's 30 this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's still very, very young for a coach, especially professionally. So you've still got, if you're looking at Pete Hansen, he was coaching like well into his 60s, right?
35 years at Ohio State.
Yeah. So, I mean, he coached longer at Ohio State than we've been born.
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you still feel like you've only dipped your toe in the water and there's still so much more to learn and so much more to experience?
I need to keep learning, and I need to be around different people. And in just 2 years, I mean, I've been around people from probably 15 different countries in 2 years. And starting my professional career at 27, because I have a late birthday, it just kind of opened my eyes to, if I can do this much in this amount of time, there's no end to this. There's no end. And my goal is definitely to be in the A League in Italy. Like, I don't see why I can't be there. I don't see why you can't coach in Russia or Italy or Poland. And I don't see why maybe one day I can't coach Team Canada. That thought isn't really like outside of what's doable for me, especially. But you got to do your dues, and you just have to just be patient with it.
What about coming back and coaching like a college or university team here in Canada? Is that something that you'd be interested in as well?
Yeah, I would love to do that. I mean, getting youth players and sharing what I've learned and kind of giving it to them and giving them a fresh look, potentially a fresh look on how to play or how to be a team, that excites me. I would love to do another 2 years of pro or another 10 years of pro and come back to Ontario and share what I've learned. I think that's kind of the point. At least I think it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, hey, I applaud you for doing that. There's not many people who have taken that risk to go, coach overseas. And I mean, you're essentially doing exactly what the players do, as you mentioned before. Like you're taking that risk going to play or coach in a small town in Denmark. And yeah, man, I can't applaud you enough for that, because as I said, not many people take that risk. Even like I coached before, like I coached at George Brown College, and I coached club as well. And that thought never even crossed my mind. Of course, I've had different aspirations and don't coach anymore. Although I do have to admit, like, even when you said like I just want to smell the gym, like I miss smelling the gym. Like I miss yeah, I miss that part. But yeah, I definitely applaud you for what you're doing, because you're just gaining experience that no matter what happens next, like if you go have success in A1 Italy, that's fantastic. But no matter what you're going to do, you're going to be able to bring that back to Canada. And, I do wish that there was more, coaching positions for guys like you. That's why I've always kind of looked at like that European model of professional sports and wondered, like, would that work for volleyball here in Canada? Can we change our perception of pro sports and allow like maybe Durham Attack to have like a professional team that they groom their players kind of through maybe not groom's the right word, but they develop their players throughout the stages. Maybe they go play University of College and they come back and play for their club team, maybe at like a pro or semi-pro level.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a dream. I don't think it's unattainable. I mean, with one volleyball happening in Ontario and out west, that's kind of, I think, the introduction to testing the waters with a professional system. I mean, I'm not involved in that area, especially in Canada, so I don't know if I can comment too heavily in what I know about it. But it's just so, Canada and North America is just so competitive with sports that are televised and that generate revenue. And the only way to really keep athletes in your country is to pay them, especially at that level. And if companies don't see a return on that, you're kind of left where you started. So I hope that volleyball can grow to a position where people like to watch it. and at the right times. But as of right now, even the MLB, with our Jays, with the Raptors, with we watch football. We don't even have a team, and we watch, NFL. We watch more of it, and the only way to kind of grow it is to watch it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I find it's actually an issue of how many volleyball people, back when I was trying to promote matches and stuff like that for Volleyball Canada, be like, hey, Team Canada's playing. And they'd be like, yeah, I love playing the game, but I really don't want to watch it. Being like, guys, like, I've seen you sit down on Sunday and watch a whole slate of football games, and you can't even sit down and watch one volleyball game.
Yeah, and we're also in the NFL. We're watching the best of the best compete against each other, and I think One Volleyball did do a good job with drawing in familiar faces and very good talent. But you need talent, you need publicity. You got to find even the right time of day to watch it. That's important. Things have to line up, and they have to work, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, it's clear that everything's kind of been lining up and working for you, and I mean, I don't think that's too surprising, too, considering how much you've told me that you've been working at this since you were 15 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's crazy. Like, you've almost been coaching for 15 years.
But you say it like that, I kind of, yeah.
And like, I kind of suspect you're a lot like me, that as soon as that coaching light bulb went off when you were 15, you always kind of looked at the sport through the lens of a coach, right?
Yeah, that's safe to say, for sure.
Yeah. So that's incredible, dude. Like, hats off to you, really, that you've gone this far. Because, hey, Pete Rose may have been coaching at Ohio State for 35 years, but you've already devoted half of your life to the sport, and it's paying off.
When you say it like that, it makes me feel a little old. But
we are getting old. Like,
we are, though, right?
Yeah. It's weird with that realization. I actually just interviewed on Friday. I interviewed Mark Wilson. Who just released that one, and like, we are getting pretty old. It's weird to say that, like, we're a decade removed from the OVA. We're a decade, like your last year at the OVA.
We were playing with the leather volleyball when we were playing college.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, like those to this day, like, and I mean, you remember, because in club we played with the Bodden. But the Bodden that you played with in club compared to the Bodden that you played with in college and university was literally a different ball.
Yeah.
And that ball used to bounce. Like, that ball was great for spin service, great for hitting warm up. Really sucked if you got it in the face, though.
Yeah, because it bounced really quickly off your head.
Yeah, it did. The bladder was so reactive, and it just, like, it hits you hard. So, I mean, that's how you know you're getting old, when you've gone through different iterations of balls now. Because, like,
yeah, it's true. Like, some kids only know the Mikasa ball. That's what they know. That's what a volleyball is.
Yeah, like that Mikasa is getting switched up. Like, it's the new style now for the 2020 Olympics. But that original Mikasa with just the 8 panels, that came out in 2008 for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Like, I remember being at the RTTC Regional Team Training Center at Humber College in 2008, and some of the OVA staff brought in this new ball, and we were like, whoa, what is going on? It was the blue and yellow Mikasa, and they're like, this is what they're going to be using at the Olympics, and everyone was like freaking out about it. And now that's standard across the board, and there's some kids, as you said, who don't know anything else. Like, even so, as far that teams are changing their logos to represent that ball.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's an entire culture shift. It's an entire new way of playing, and the ball allows different play. Like, it really does. It changes the game. The ball really does matter, like we said.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Well, dude, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat with me today. I know you've got your COVID test in a little bit, so best of luck with that. Is that a test, or are you getting the shot?
It's a test. It's a test. I'm waiting in line for my turn whenever the government says I can. But
yeah, absolutely. So if you get that test, if it's positive, are you allowed out, or do you still have to go back into quarantine for the rest of the time?
I haven't really thought that far, but I'm hoping I don't test positive for corona. But either way, I just stay in my room, kind of like I am anyway. So,
well, dude, as I said, I can't thank you enough for coming to chat with me today. It was very enlightening. a very enlightening conversation for me.
Anytime.
And you know what? Congratulations on all your success this year. But I have a feeling that like that's just kind of like the tip of the iceberg. I feel like this is not the last we're going to see of you, and I'm excited to see what's to come in the future for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I do hope I can accomplish more, whether it's measured in medals or future coaches that come up and maybe said, hey, Mike Bossence was a coach, and that maybe got me to coach. That means everything, like starting something like that is beyond getting coach of the year. You know what I mean? So I hope young coaches know that it's accessible and it's okay to be scared to start coaching, and it's okay to be nervous, and it's okay to just get your feet wet and just go out and coach.
And also that there's a future in it, like you
Okay.
you can you can pay the bills being a coach. It is difficult, but eventually it will get easier. And there's just more and more opportunities now. Like in the past decade, we went from a time when there was the OUA coaches who were winning OUA championships and were part-time coaches, and now there's no way we're going to be seeing that, right? And now there's guys like you who are going overseas. So I think that like that opportunity as a volleyball coach is really there, and I'm really happy that you're one of the guys at the forefront of it for Canadians.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. All right, guys. Is there anything else that you want to mention as we wrap up here? Any shout outs you want to give to anyone?
Oh my goodness. It's overwhelming the amount of support I've gotten, whether it's from, Dwayne Cochran from Durham Attack, or Scott Burrows, or even guys like Adam Martin, some of my best friends who encouraged me to stay coaching. And, there's an overwhelming amount of support, and it keeps me accountable, because if I don't do it, I don't want to let anyone down, even though that's not healthy, but it keeps me motivated. It keeps me going. And you should find a driving force to keep you doing what you love to do, and not let anyone bring you down. Just keep doing it. Do what you love.
Amazing, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. Guys, that was head coach Mike Bossence, who is the coach of the year this year in Denmark for Middelfart Volleyball Club. Canada born bred, Durham Attack boy, Durham College boy. Mike, can't thank you enough. We'll definitely have you on again next year. We should definitely do a mid-season chat, kind of check in and stuff like that, and see how you're doing. But best of luck with your COVID test later on today, and we'll definitely talk to you soon.
Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time. Peace.